Hi, here in the Arizona Republican AZ Central Newsroom, I'm reporter Richard Ruelas here with Alessandra, Director of the Arizona ACLU, Executive Director of the Arizona ACLU. Over our shoulder, they're preparing for the President's visit Tuesday evening. What's your advice for people coming here to rally in support or protest the President's visit?
Well, I mean, obviously, we think that it's important for people who feel like they should be coming down here to express themselves. There's been a lot of planning. Tensions are really high. There are a lot of people who want their voices to be heard, and so we want to make sure that people have a plan and that the government does what they can to ensure free speech and protect the public.
When does the government step over the line? Can the government direct you? I mean, how far can the government go in directing how the protests go?
So that's a great question, Richard. I mean, obviously in this particular case, because we have the President and the Vice President here, it's sort of the Secret Service is involved, very involved in terms of the plans, and they're working with the city of Phoenix. I mean, the government, obviously, if there's violence that breaks out, the government can call off the protests in the interest of ensuring safety.
How does that work? What do they have to do to call off a protest? Is it one of those things we see where they say, this is your last warning, or that kind of thing?
Right, they'll issue an order to disperse, which is what we kind of saw in Charlottesville. The concern is that we don't want a repeat of what happened in Charlottesville, where people disperse and there's really the police are not there to continue to ensure safety, so that there is some distance between the protesters and the counter-protesters.
As a civil libertarian, would you advise, if a motion to disperse comes out, that people disperse? Or what if you feel the motion to disperse or the order to disperse is not correct?
Unconstitutional. If you feel, regardless of what the order is, if you think it's a right or wrong order, you've got to comply with police.
At that moment? With
the police order, exactly at that moment. And then, we can figure out how to contest it after the fact, but I think that's one of the pieces of advice that we give everyone is, if you're there and you have an order, you receive an order for police to disperse, follow those police orders.
The ACLU and groups like yours are there to fight it out in court after the fact in many ways?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working with the various different groups. I mean, we've been working with the Puente human rights group here to plan the protest. We've been communicating with the city of Phoenix. I mean, we want to ensure that people's First Amendment rights are protected, and so, but again, critical of that, we have legal observers, and they're going to be there observing and documenting, and we can try to resolve some issues as much as we can there. But again, you want to comply with the police order, otherwise you may risk getting arrested. We also have a plan for that.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, if
it does turn to arrest,
sure.
Can you be directed where to be if you're a protester?
Yes. Right. So the government, even though you don't necessarily have to get a permit in order to protest and to express yourself, the government has the right to dictate where you can express yourself.
Depending on the side, or is it just a zone?
So in this particular case, the Secret Service, for example, has total control over, who enters and exits the Phoenix Convention Center. And so let's say, you have counter-protesters who were outside, they're at the Herberger, and they're extremely loud and they're disrupting the activities that are going on inside the rally. The Secret Service in that instance can move the protesters and say, you're disrupting the rally inside.
Well,
we would hope that the government doesn't pick and choose which viewpoints to, support and endorse. We don't want them discriminating on the basis of viewpoint or message. But, in this particular instance, the Secret Service does have a tremendous amount of authority. But again, what we would like to see is the protesters, any counter-protesters, they should be close enough to each other where they can be heard. People want to be heard. Tensions are really high, but they also, the police have an obligation to keep everyone safe. So you don't want them close enough where there could be violence.